Right, in my last video I showed you how to get to the point where you could install the Google Plus API to give you the ability to have this platform insight button on your page through the dashboard. So what I wanted to do now is to show you how to kind of take it to the next level, because obviously having platform insights is only as useful as the information that you can actually see within it. Now quick look around this to begin with. So what you have is, you have on the platform insights, you've got various sort of drop downs that will become relevant based on what sort of thing you're looking at. So you have 2 date ranges to look at: last 30 days, last 7. You have the sign-in activity, interactive posts, and activity sent. So what I'm going to be focusing mainly on is interactive posts, because that's really one of the things that I think people are looking for. They're posting information that they have on their website to Google Plus, and what they want to be able to do is to see what sort of exposure they got. I mean, if you post something on Facebook, you get, through the Open Graph protocol, you get the ability to see what sort of readership you got from it, and you're able to see how many clicks you had. And one of the things that Google Plus has not had is they've not had that information up until interactive posts came out. So now you have the ability that you can not only see when you post something, you can create a call to action button that gives you the ability to hopefully engage with your audience and take them from your Google Plus presence through to your website. It also gives you the ability to see how many people saw it and how many people took action that you wanted them to. So what are the sort of stages that we need to go through as part of this process? So here we've got obviously interactive posts. You can see that you can see post views, clicks, click-through rate. If you have an app, then obviously show the app install rate, but it also breaks it down by web, Android and iOS devices, which again will be quite useful if you're trying to understand whether people that use Android devices are more engaged with your content than maybe people that just use the web. But at the moment, as you can see, there's no information in here at all, and that's obviously because I only installed the setup on the last video. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get the ability to make it that you can get the interactive post showing in Google Plus. So there is a couple of guys that really I need to give a big shout out to. First off is a guy called Mike Arnesen, who works for a company called SwellPath, and Mike developed a PHP page that basically gave you the ability to kind of create these interactive post snippets to enable you to push an interactive post out without too much complication. Then there's a guy called Paul Shapiro, who here, as you can see, he's actually created a Google interactive post plugin for WordPress, which allows you to easily create interactive posts from within the post admin page. And what he's done is he's kind of smoking his own trout, and what he's done here is he's actually got a download button which downloads the plugin from his website. I've just downloaded it here, and what I've done is I've just installed it for the ease of simplicity. But if you wanted to, you can kind of get it from the WordPress plugin depository through Google Plus Interactive Post Creator. So again, much like a cooking program for the benefits of. So you've downloaded the plugin, and as I mentioned, I've gone ahead and installed it. Then on the settings menu, you have the Google Interactive Post plugin page. What it will do is it will ask you for your API client ID, and it's only looking for a short number which you get from your Google API console. So if you go there and you click on API access, you have something called a client ID, and the client ID, all they're looking for is the first few digits on the actual app. So you copy those, you paste it in there, and what that will do is it will actually hook up your WordPress blog with the Google API, and then that way when you create your Google interactive post in WordPress, it will give you all the relevant OAuth authorization to enable you to actually get the sort of 2 bits together. So now I've done that, and I've updated the settings. And so what I want to do now is I want to basically create a Google Plus interactive post. Now I wrote a post not so long ago called Media Buying What Runs Where.com versus MixRank. Now I could just go ahead and click on Create Google Plus Post, and that would give me some pretty good information. What I like to do is I like to actually try to tag things up, because I use Google Analytics a lot to actually give me some more information as far as what actually takes place from there. So if people share it or grab it, post it on Twitter or something like that, I can actually see the distribution from there. Whereas, if it's just a plain URL, then I don't really kind of know whether it came from Google Plus or somewhere else. So I take a couple of extra steps. So first thing I do is I use a URL shortener called GOO.gl. This gives you the ability to create shortened URLs. So again, to kind of speed up the process, what I've actually done is I've turned my long URL. So what I do is I'll show you the link address just so you can actually see it. But what I've done is I've actually added on all the various UTM source codes, Google Plus, the social, Medium being social, and then the campaign name, so that when I actually sort of post it through the URL shortener, it'll have all of that information in the URL itself. So I've got my URL, shortened URL there. So I grab that, I go back to here. Right, then what I want to do is I want to click on the Create Google Plus Post. So I click on that button. Now it's got a few things that you need to kind of fill in. So the first bit is the pre-fill text. Now this is completely optional. I mean, generally speaking, what I do whenever I post something on Google Plus, I usually use sort of best practices, which is to maybe include a headline in bold and then a few bits of information with some shout outs and that type of thing. So it's not compulsory for you to do it, so I just usually put in something like pre-fill, so then I know kind of where I am, so when it actually appears. So the next thing you have is you have the call to action label. Now, whereas on Facebook you have like, and that's pretty much it. With Google Plus, you obviously have a vast, I think it's about 100 different calls to action that you can actually use. So depending on what type of content it is that you're sharing, what type of post it is you're sharing, it'll give you a much better idea as to what you ought to be doing. So in this particular case, this is just a plain blog post with a video, right? So I might want to use something like watch as the call to action. So I choose that. Then what I do is I put in my call to action URL. So in this case, this is the shortened URL. In there, and then I click the first button, which is generate new interactive post. That's there, done that in the background, and then the next step is step 2 is to actually share the interactive post with my Google Plus circles. So I click on the button, it gives me, as I mentioned there, it's got share on Google Plus. So again, what I could do is I could put video, what runs where versus mixrank.com. Here is a video which shows some of the differences. So again, I'm not going to go through the process of showing you how to create a post on Google Plus, but what it does is it shows you it's a Google interactive post. It's got the image there, and then it's got the call to action. It's going to public, so if I wanted to add more people I could, and then I click on share. So that now has been posted to so now I have my post which is on here showing it's a video, what runs where. Here's a video which shows some of the differences, Google interactive posts, and then it's got the URL there, and then the short URL. So what you'll actually see is when it does the interactive post, it puts the URL there. That's actually the URL for the actual page itself, rather than the shortened version. And then obviously the call to action is the shortened version. So what I want to do is I want to see whether people are actually interacting with the call to action, which in this case would be that. So if I click on that, that takes people through to the URL shorten redirect, takes them through to the page. I can then obviously sort of see it, watch the video, whatever. But now if I go back to my dashboard, right, what I can do is if I view the platform insights, I mean, again, it's one of those, until such times you've got some sort of statistical significance, there's not really a lot of information that shows up, right? But if I say choose the interactive posts, the post views, as you probably one of the things that there would be some information on if there was a reasonable amount of activity. You've got clicks, you've got click-through rate. So here the click-through rate is showing us 100%. And what they do is they're saying to protect privacy, we only show data that represents a significant number of users. But as you can see, that action is actually there now. So you're able to kind of get an understanding as to some of the information that takes place. So